Today's daf is daf Vav, and we're up to the first line, Itmar, Bibei Rav. So in the yeshiva of Rav, Amri, they said in the name of Rav that Rav Shari, Rav was matir be'ila rishona on Shabbos, Ushmuel Osar. Ben Arda, which was the locality of Shmuel, Amri, they said just the opposite. Rav Osar Ushmuel Shari. Rav Nachbar Yitzhak v'Simonech Elu Mekilin Liatzum Elu Mekilin Liatzum. In other words, in each local place where they quoted their Rebbe, who was the final authority, they would quote him Lakula. So, for example, in Beirav, they quoted Rav as being Mekil, and in Nardo, which was the hometown of Shmuel, they quoted Shmuel as being Mekil, as being Mati. So now the Gemara is going to embark on an investigation of Rav Shita. Because if Rav was Matir, according to the yeshiva of Rav, the Beirav of the Ila Rishon of B'Shabbos, must mean that Rav holds that Dover Shein Miskavin is Mutter. So the Gemara asks the following kasha. For Rav Shari, Ha'omar Rav Shimi Bar Chizkiya Mishnei de Rav, Hai Misochraya Denazaisa, Osur Ladoka B'Yom Tava. So we're talking now about the Easter of Schita. Now, Schita falls under one of two categories. There's Schita, which is part of Meleches Ochel, what we call Sidur de Pas. But that's not the discussion that we're having here. There's Schita b'Toras Libud, the told of Libud, which has to do with cleaning something. So, for example, if you have a cloth that's saturated with, in this case, wine, and you squeeze out the wine, the squeezing of the wine is Schita as a told of Malabin. Now, they had Mesochraya Dinazaisa. They had a large vat of wine with a little spout. But instead of a spout, what they had was to open and close the opening when you wanted to take out yayin, or close it up so that the yayin doesn't fall out. They would plug it up, so to speak, with a cloth. And that cloth was saturated with wine. Now, as soon as you push it in to the hole in order to clog up the hole, then immediately you are soche, because some of the wine, and the Gemara is going to call it a psik reisha, is inevitably going to come out of this saturated piece of clothing, of cloth. And this would be a violation of the Iser Schita. Now, there's a discussion here as to why he mentions Yontif, and perhaps the Chiddush of Yontif is that you might have thought it's Meleches Ochel Nefesh, but Kamashpala, no, it's not a Meleches Ochel Nefesh, because we're talking about the beged, we're not talking about the wine. If you did a malach in the wine, that would be one thing. But we're talking about begodim, and we're talking about Schita Mishum Malabin, so that's also on Yontif. But anyway, we see that Rav prohibits pushing back this cloth as a plug on Yontif because of Meleches Malabin, and even though he's not miskaven, he just wants to close up the chavis. He's not interested in squeezing wine out of the cloth. So now we have a contradiction in two rulings of Rav. The ruling of Rav to be mater bila rishonam Shabbos is because he's ain't a miskaven. And as we discussed on Friday, the ain't a miskaven is one of two malachas, either meleches chabura or meleches bona. But in any event, he's not miskaven, and therefore Rav was matir. But here you see that Rav is oser than ain't a miskaven in misochraya ben zaisa. So the Gemara answers that you're right. If Rav holds that Dover Shein Miskaven is mutter like Reb Shimon, why does he prohibit like hiduk beged in the chavis, in the pia chavis? Bahu in that case of stimas piachomas afilu Reb Shimon Moda. Why? Because the Amri, the Abai Verova Amri Chavai Moda Reb Shimon P'Sikreisha Lo Yomus. So when you have action A that may or may not cause a result, we'll call it B, that's not a psikresha. And if you're not miskaven to that result, which is the malacha, then Rav Shimon is matir. But if the totzah, meaning the repercussions of your action, will be definite as far as the malacha is concerned, there's no doubt about it. That's called psikresha, like cutting off the head of a chicken. The chicken's going to die. It's inevitable. And Rav Shimon is modib psikresha that it's also. And here in the case where he plugs in this piece of cloth, it's inevitably going to do a schita. There's no question about it. And therefore, even Rav Shimon holds its house. But Milas Mitzvah, Milas Psula, that's not Vadai. We're not sure that it'll do a malacha. And we're going to see later on, because it's possible that he might do it Bahatoya in a way that he doesn't break the membrane. And therefore, Rav is Matid, Dov Shenim is Kaving like Rav Shimon. Now, there's a long discussion here about why Rav Shimon is Moda in the case of Psikresha. And there are basically, as far as I can tell, two fundamentally different approaches. One approach is that if it's a psikresha, you can't say that he's not miskaven. What do you mean he's not miskaven? That's foolish. You know, chop off the head of a chicken and you're not miskaven. You don't have intention to kill the chicken. I mean, how do you kill a chicken if not by cutting off its head? So it's ridiculous. You have kavan. So psikresha makes an eno miskaven into a miskaven. The other approach is that moder of shim psikresha is because we collapse two maisim into one. Normally, we separate between Maisa A and Maisa B, which allows us to say at Kavana for A and not for B. So you could say, he had Kavana to drag the chairs, and relocate them from point X to point Y. He didn't have Kavana. He was not intending to make furrows in the ground. So there are two Maisa here. There's one Maisa of transportation, and there's another Maisa of digging into the ground. That's where Rav Shimon says we can separate his kavana and determine which is really his mice. But if it's a psikresha, you can't say I'm separating between cutting off the head of the chicken and killing the chicken. I mean, the act of cutting off the head of a chicken is the act of killing the chicken. You can't say there are two mice. So the Gemara now asks, Omar Rav Chia bar Ashi, Omar Rav Halacha ki Rabbi Yehuda. How could it be that Rav is paskening Dov Shenim is coming like Rav Shimon is mutter when we know by tradition that Rav paskins halach Rabbi Yehuda that Dov Shenim is coming is also? And Rav Chanan bar Ami Omer Shmuel, it's Dafka Shmuel who's being quoted here as saying halach Rabbi Shimon, but not Rav. For Rav Chia bar Ovid, so we have two Rav Chias here, we won't confuse them, but Rav Chia the second, bar Ovid, Masi below Gav. He takes out so-and-so said in the name of Rav, so-and-so said in the name of Shmuel. No, leave that all out. Below Gav. Rav Amar Alocha Reb Yehuda, Shmuel Amar Alocha Reb Shimon. But we see clearly that Rav is holding that Dov Shenim Miskaven is also like Reb Shimon. So how can you justify Rav's being matir, be'ilu rishona, on Shabbos because of Eina Miskaven? Eina Miskaven is also like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, Li Olam Rav Rabbi Yehuda Sfirli. Now we shift our focal point from Rav pasking like Rabbi Shimon Dov Shenim Miskaven is mutter to Rav pasking like Rabbi Yehuda, Dov Shenim Miskaven is also. So now we have a problem. How do we justify Rav's leniency in the case of the Ilu Rishona, the Shabbos? That's a Dov Shenim Miskaven. So the Gemara now is going to introduce a different element into the equation. The reason why you might be lenient and be matir Bila Rishon Shabbos has nothing to do with Davar Shein Miskaven. It's for an entirely different reason. We're throwing in a curveball from left field, and that is Makal. Lahach Lishna, according to the first Lishna that we had back on Daf Hey, the Omar Dam Mifkid Pokid, that there's no Meleches Chabura in the case of Be'ilah Rishona because the dam is not part of the circulatory system. So that's not Chabura. But rather, the issue is going to be Pesach, that you're opening up Pesach. Is Rav holds Mekalkel who ate saw Pesach. A Basula is worth more than a Ba'ula. So he's really doing a Kilkul. Lahach Lishna, according to the second Lishna, the Omar, Dam Chibure Mechbar, and therefore, if the dam is part of the circulatory system, therefore Yechai Mishum Chabura, which is told of Netil Nechama, is Mekalkel B'Chabura. Okay, this is a whole issue where the Mekalkel is Potter in Chabura, but right now we're assuming, according to Rav, that Mekalkel B'Chabura is Potter. So there are two ways of explaining why Rav would be Matir Be'ilah Rishona B'Shabbos. One is because he would only be chayiv for asiyas Pesach, and that's considered a kilkul because a ba'ula is worth less than a basula. And according to the reasoning of Dam Chiburi Mechber, which is Chabura, he's a makalkel. So Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda that Davar Shein Miskaven is also, but Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda Lekula that makalkel b'chabura is potter against Rabbi Shimon. And then we have to add another element to the equation, namely that Be'ilas Pesula is an act of kilkul. That's according to the second Lishna. If you go with the first Lishna, we'll say Asiyas Pesach is a kilkul. We look back for a second on Daf Hey, Amid Beis, the Gemara has decided to say, "Imkin tulom b'chaburi mechber l'dam hu tzarch v'yasar o dimul anas atzmo tzarch v'shari." So we're assuming now that it's not l'dam tzarch, because it'd be very difficult to sustain the Gemara's premise that we're talking about a makalkel if l'dam hu tzarch. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Like if, let's say, for you it would be a makalkel, but I'm doing the malacha for myself, it's not a kilkul. It's very productive. I don't know. Maser Rav Chizda, we have Mishnah Masechet Nida Daf Samach Daled Amid Beis Tinoka Shlo Higia Zman Liros. She's too young to have seen. Dam, she's younger than 12 years old. And Nisei, since she gets married, and now after Be'ilah she sees Dam, L'chora, we're going to assume that this is not uteral bleeding. So it's not a menstruation period. It's not nidus. We can attribute the dam to dam besulin, which is not metami dam benida. But wait a minute, how long can we allow this to go on? I mean, let's say time after time she keeps seeing dam. At what point do we say this is not dam besulin? All the dam besulin came out already. So Beit Shammai Omer Nosula Arba Leilos. We'll give her the first 4 nights after the Be'ilah, and any dam she sees for those 4 nights, we're going to attribute it to dam B'tsulin, and she's Tahora. Let's say she sees dam on day 5, that already it's difficult to assume it came from the B'tsulin. We're going to have to assume it's dam Nidus. Beis Hillel Omer Ad Shetichya Mak. Beis Hillel Mekil. They say, well, you know what? We can extend it even beyond 4 days. It doesn't depend upon a time period. It depends upon refuah, whether or not she's finished with dam besulin. And how do we determine that she's finished with dam besulin? It's called shetichya maka. If she has tashmish amita on one occasion and she doesn't see dam, then we assume that she's finished with dam besulin. All dam besulin came out of it. And now if she sees dam subsequently, we have to assume it's dam nida. The Mishnah continues and says, Higias mana liros v'nises. Now she's old enough to see dam nida. Again, she's not seen nida once in her life yet. So she was married off. Beit Shammai omer no layla rishon. In this case, since Higias mana, she's old enough and mature enough to have a menstrual cycle. Therefore, we'll only give her that first night. We'll assume the first night, says Beit Shammai, is dam besun. But anything after the first night, we have to assume it might be dam nidus. Ubeis Hill omer, no. Ad motzoi Shabbos, arba leilos. Now, arba leilos was the first case of Beit Shammai. But now it says Ad Motzoi Shabbos in Beis Hillel. So what are we talking about now? She got married on second. Yeah, she got married on Wednesday night, which is the night of Thursday, of Yom Chamishi. So we have the first night, and then we have Yom Chamishi, right? That's Chamishi. Then we have Shishi, and then we have Shabbos. Why is he called it Arba Leilos? Just 1 second. Right. So Motzi Shabbos, and I think we're applying the principle of Ad V'Ad B'chal. That's the fourth night when you start counting Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, on which we're going to be told about Dam B'Sul. And after this, we assume it's Dam Nidus. So Beis Hillel was Mekil in the first case of Lo Higias Mana to allow Adshe Tichya Maka, which could take a while. In the second case, Beis Hillel adopts a similar position to Beis Shammai in the Reisha, and he says there's a set 4 nights. And that's talking about a case of Higias Mana Liros.